I'm Phil, and I'm an addict. And before I start, there's a few things I need to say. This convention is real special to me. My first FRCNA was in Orlando in 1988. And I might live in Georgia, but boy, my heart's down here because I haven't missed one since. I want to thank Biff for introducing me. That's a nice thing about sponsorship. When I asked him to sponsor me, that was the day I surrendered. That's the day I found somebody to help me walk through this program. And I still walk, except I roll a little bit faster too. Somebody asked me this morning if I was nervous. I said, yeah, but boy, sitting up here, you'll never see my knee shake. But that's okay. Sometimes I don't mind being in this chair because, boy, I get great parking spots. I want you all to do something for me and for yourself. This is the end of the convention. And I've been where these people are right now. I chaired a Georgia convention, and I know what it's like on Sunday morning. Boy, it's a letdown. They've worked their asses off for a year, and it's almost over. So when you see somebody with one of these host badges on, one of these committee badges, stop them, give them a hug, tell them you love them. Tell them thank you. Because, see, that's all they get, is our thank you for putting on one heck of a party, one celebration of recovery. Do it. It don't hurt. My story isn't any different than anybody else in this room. I was born. And I was born, I know it's hard to say this, but I think I was born an addict. I think I needed to go to a meeting instead of an incubator. Because before I ever used my first drug, I had all the problems of addiction. Stealing, lying, jealousy, feeling not a part of. I can remember going all the way back to, I guess I was about 10 or 11 years old. And for the first 6 years, I was an only child. And then I had a brother, and boy, I didn't like him. Because it took away from me. And I guess I was about 10 years old, and I know nobody else in this room's ever done this. But I took my brother aside and I said, you know, Richard, it's a shame that you're adopted. And if you don't do what I say, they're going to send you back to where they got you. Well, you know, that's real traumatic for a 4-year-old. And it was real traumatic on my ass when he told my father. Because at 10 or 11 years old, he wore me out. And I lied for attention. I stole for attention. I had jealousy for attention. For the first 6 years, I had all the attention, and then I had a brother and a sister, and I didn't feel like I had any attention. And you have to understand, you know, we had a lot of speakers here this weekend, and all of us have different stories. And we're all supposed to have different stories, but we all get to the same place. I come from a very loving family, a very functional family. They didn't drink, they didn't use drugs, they didn't fight. Before my mother passed away, they were married for 45 years. I never saw my parents fight. but I also never felt that I stole money from my family so I could be a part of my friends and buy my friendship or buy their friendship. So I could go and do the things that they were doing and be better than. I went to high school, and I know I did something that nobody else in this room's ever done. I went through high school with 2 sets of report cards. One real one and one my parents saw. And it really didn't come to fruition until I got ready to graduate, and I had to tell them, there's a small problem. I'm not going to graduate with my class. They'd like me to go another semester and graduate with another class, because my grades weren't exactly the B's and A's that you've seen for the last 3 years. Because I could sign my dad's name real well. And I used during high school. So I could be a part of the crowd that I wanted to run with. And I finally graduated high school and I went to college. And again, I know I'm different than anybody in this room. I majored in pool shooting, playing cards, and getting high. So of course I didn't do real well in college either. And after I left college for the 3rd time, I went in the Air Force. Now you have to understand, I used all during school. But I didn't have a problem. I went in the Air Force, I went overseas, and I really had a problem. I would go to bed high, I'd wake up high. And I stayed that way for 4 years. Because I wanted to be a part of. I wanted to be running with what I thought was the hip, slick, and cool people. I got out of college and I went to Memphis to go to graduate school, because I did go to college while I was in the Air Force. And I went to graduate school at Memphis, and that lasted 1 semester, and I found the music business. Or it found me. And I got involved in the music business, and I'm sure everybody knows in the late 60s, early 70s, there were no drugs in the music business. I had them all. And I gave some to my friends. See, I used to have one pocket that had the good and one pocket that had the bunk. And if you wanted some, you know what pocket you got. And my life wasn't unmanageable. I know you're looking at me up here, slim, trim. I weighed 420 pounds. I had hair down to my shoulders. I had a beard. I was a diabetic. I ate candy. I smoked, and I did drugs on a daily basis. But I wasn't trying to kill myself. Okay, I can understand that. And in the early 70s, after I had had about as much of the music business as I could take, I did something. I had a career change. I went from a roadie, a gopher, a booking agent, and I became a stockbroker. Now see, that's normal. That seems normal to me. I cut my hair, I put on a suit and a tie, and I started selling stocks and bonds to friends. Boy, is that fun. Especially when I spent most of my time in the bathroom getting high. It's awfully hard to watch what you're doing with somebody else's money when you can't even see. It only lasted a few years until I had completely bankrupted some of my friends, and I realized maybe this isn't the career for me. And also, the SEC decided it wasn't the career for me too. Which I never did understand, but I do today. So I then made another career change, and I started taking gambling junkets, if anybody knows what that is, to Las Vegas. Well, boy, that's just where I needed to be, because that way I had all the drugs that I could ever want. And all the people that I took out to Las Vegas to gamble in the 70s, I, of course, hung out with the people that were doing drugs. We had a good time. There's nothing better than playing blackjack and knowing that you can hit 19. Think about that for a minute. It's very true. In 1981, I got arrested and put in jail for the first time behind drugs. This guy owed me money for drugs. He wouldn't pay me. I was high. I took a gun, stuck it in his mouth, and told him to suck the chrome off or give me my money. Well, he did something really silly. He went and told the police I did that. I never could understand that. I do today. They arrested me, and they put me in a penal farm in Memphis, Tennessee. It wasn't quite prison, but we were locked up. We couldn't go anywhere. And I got high every day for the 6 months that I was in there. The day I walked out of there, I got in the car in the parking lot of the jail and started slamming my nose as fast as I could. But I didn't have a problem. I was okay. If I could just do a little bit more, I could get straight. Well, see, I had to move. I couldn't stay in Memphis because I had been in jail, and I didn't want the shame, so I moved to Texas. I figured a little geographical change of my job, I'd be okay. I got to Dallas, found the dope man. That's the first thing I did. And I stayed high until September the 10th of 1983. And that was the day that the DEA and the FBI Drug Task Force decided to do an intervention on me. I didn't ask them for it, but they thought it was time for me to quit. I was at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport picking up a package, and so were they. I was a little upset. They took me out in the parking lot to search me, and I said, please don't search my pants because my underwear is full of, and I'm scared. For the next 5 months, between the lawyers and going to court, and of course my lawyer telling me, it's going to be a couple, 3 years before you ever go to court, and, we'll handle it. Well, of course, he was wrong. He had been wrong about everything else. Because 5 months later, I went to a treatment center. Except at that time, they called it prison. Now, I know that I'm up here and I'm looking pretty good this morning. Nice, clean-cut guy. I'm an ex-convict. It's hard to believe, isn't it? Okay, it's not hard to believe. It was hard for me to believe it. See, I could see the Whataburger sign, I just couldn't go get one. This judge told me, he said, Mr. LaVINE, and that is my name, Phil LaVINE, because, and I don't mind telling y'all, because if you ever come to Atlanta, it's awful tough to call information and say, what's the number for Phil L? They don't know me by that name. But if you come to Atlanta and you want to go to a meeting or you want to talk or you want to do something, my name's Phil LaVINE. And I'll tell you that here. I forget where I was. Oh, yeah. So, got past Phil LaVINE, though, didn't I? 5 months later, and I was clean for those 5 months only because they told me to be. Not because I had a program, people. Don't think all of a sudden, boom, there was Narcotics Anonymous and I was saved. They told me that they would give me UAs. You know what those are? Right. And if I came up dirty, they were going to revoke my bond and put me in jail until I went to trial. So, out of fear, I didn't use. And that's all it was fear. No program, no life, still lying, still cheating, fear. I'm in the ladies' apparel business, which means I don't wear ladies' clothes. I sell clothes wholesale to stores that mark the price up and sell them to y'all. That's a fun job. And I never even told my company that I had been arrested. I never told my company that there was a chance that I was going away for a while. I kind of lied to them. But of course I was asking them for as much money as I could get my hands on. And in February of 1984, and I'll never forget it, on a Friday, I turned myself into the Federal Correctional Institute in Fort Worth, Texas, to serve an 8-year sentence. Now, if you think that's not tough, they didn't take me there. I had to go there myself. I had to pack a suitcase with what they told me I could bring, and turn myself into the front door of a prison. Well, I had a friend of mine that got busted with me, and he took a right instead of a left at the front door, and he didn't come. And he's doing time today because he didn't show up. And I went to prison on a Friday, and you go through orientation, all that. And I'm going to say something now, and I know I'm not unique. I'm just blessed. I went to my first Narcotics Anonymous meeting the following Wednesday. I got my white key tag, and I've been clean and in Narcotics Anonymous ever since. Because I have a God of my understanding today. And I have a loving God. We all used to have some hateful gods. We all used to have some make-a-deal gods. I had plenty of those. God, just get me through this one more time and I won't do it again. I know none of us in this room's ever said that. And I'll tell you one of the reasons that I think I've been able to stay clean, besides you people in this room and besides my sponsor and besides all the love and the care I get, is because the girl who brought the meeting to the prison, and believe me, people, I'm an H&I baby, because if it wasn't for H&I, I wouldn't be sitting up here. Fort Worth, Texas brought a meeting to the prison every Wednesday night. And when they asked if there was anybody that wanted to change their life and start anew, and I got my first white chip, it was given to me by a girl who a year and a half earlier I had bought sex from and sold dope to. And she's still clean today. And she gave me a hug. And of course, if you're in prison, those hugs are wonderful. Okay, they're great. Okay, they're fabulous. Because that's all you can do. And she told me, which I'm sure a lot of people in this room have been told, you don't ever have to use again. And I was lucky. I was blessed. I got the message of Narcotics Anonymous right away. That's just me, people. This is my story. And I love y'all, and that's why my story is so important to me. I stayed the next 26 months in prison. And I went to Narcotics Anonymous every Wednesday night when they had the meeting for the next 26 months. Now, I was in a drug rehabilitation prison, which is wonderful. It was co-ed. How do y'all like that? That means there were guys and girls in the same prison. And we walked together, and we talked together, and we ate together, and sometimes other things happened, but I think it was the water. I'm not sure. But see, you could have what is called a walkie. That means you could have a girlfriend that you could hold hands with, but God forbid if you ever got caught doing anything else, you were gone. So we had Narcotics Anonymous meetings, and there was about maybe 100 or 150 people every Wednesday night of people that had to go. We had classes. They had to go 15 times in order to get a certificate to meet their responsibility for drug rehabilitation. Only took 15 weeks and you were rehabilitated. You were cured. Well, I was very fortunate because there was a young lady that was in prison at the same time I was, who's still clean today. There's people in this room that know her. And she took care of the girls, and I took care of the guys. And we started another meeting for people that wanted Narcotics Anonymous after the 15 weeks. That's when recovery started for me. We had basic text. I still have my basic text from almost 12 years ago. I won't give it up for love nor money. It says, with love from Step 1, Fort Worth, Texas, we do recover. It's true. That book is torn, it's dog-eared, but I know what it says because I read it over and over and over again. And the meeting that we started up until the time that Fort Worth changed to a non-co-ed prison and a much higher level still went on for years. I tried to go back to that prison to carry the message, and they wouldn't let me because there were still people in there that were there when I was there, and they won't allow that. So since I love H&I went to other prisons and other jails to carry the message to an addict. And I still do that today. And after 26 months, they reduced my sentence down to 4 years because I cry real good. Well, maybe it wasn't crying. But they reduced my sentence to 4 years, and after 26 months, I got out, and they sent me to a halfway house. And I said, I don't need to go to a halfway house. I have a job, I have a car. And they said, no, we're going to send you to the halfway house. So I said, fine. And I went to my first, I got real lucky in prison. Let me back up a second. We had a counselor there that took us a couple times in the 26 months to outside meetings in Fort Worth, Texas. Now, of course, when they said that the prisoners were coming, boy, they turned out in droves. Because I guess they thought we were coming in striped uniforms and chains. Well, we made them mad because, see, we wore our own clothes. And we just looked like anybody else. So that was my first experience as far as Narcotics Anonymous. But my first real experience was the day that I got out of prison, and I begged them to let me go to a meeting. That's all I thought about. I need to go to a meeting, a real Narcotics Anonymous meeting. So they said, fine. So I put on a suit and a tie, because I thought that's the way you went to the meetings. And I went to an old warehouse in Dallas, Texas with a suit and a tie on and my shine shoes. And I walked in, and not one person said a word to me, because they thought I was a cop. Short hair, suit and a tie, shine brogans. Oh, yes, sir. I was the police. And what was I doing there? So I sat there for the whole hour, and I didn't understand. And at the end of the meeting, the man that was chairing the meeting said, I think that guy in the back wants to say something. And in tears, I said, I'm Phil. I'm an addict. And I just got out of prison this morning. And everybody came and hugged me. And everybody came and told me they loved me. And that was the last time I wore a suit to a warehouse meeting. If I wear one now, you know we're going to a party after the meeting. But see, people, that was my first experience with love. And it was from you people. And at about 4 years clean, maybe 3 or 3.5 years clean, I got involved in service work. That was fun. I didn't even know what service work was. But somebody said, well, you know money, don't you? I said, oh yeah. You're Jewish, huh? Yep. Well, you'd make a great area treasurer. So when I qualified for that position, they said, what were you in prison for? I said, drugs. They said, okay, cool, as long as it wasn't embezzlement. People, thank God we've grown up a lot more than that. So I became the area treasurer. Oh boy, that's not good. Because that got me into service work. And I stayed in service work up until my sponsor said I can stop. I'd maybe done enough. But I still do service work because I sponsor. I'm sponsored. I go to meetings. I don't make coffee because I screw it up. And I make it so strong that you can't drink it. And I do whatever people ask me to do. And I hug the newcomer. And I tell them that they don't ever have to use again. And at 4 years clean, I did something that nobody in this room has ever done. I took a newcomer hostage. I know nobody's ever done that. But I fell in love and told this girl how to work her program. I helped her. I told her I'd do her fourth and fifth step if she wanted me to. Because, see, I had 4 years clean, so I knew what was going on, and she had 6 months, and I knew what was best for her. Oh, the penalty is a bitch. Because, see, I knew people on world service, and that's who I introduced her to. And I was involved in the book, It Works, so of course I took her with me to the workshops, and she sat down there with people with 10 and 12 and 15 years clean, and she didn't even know what fog she was in. And of course, it didn't work. Because, see, at a year clean, I put a ring on her finger, and she said yes, and at a year and a half clean, she gave me the ring back and said goodbye and good luck. Now, the miracle about that is that she just celebrated 7 years, and she's married, and she's happy, and I at least didn't put her back out on the street using. And I'll tell you people today, and this is what I was taught by my sponsor, by you people, no more relationships with a person until they've worked the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous, have a sponsor, have a God of their understanding, and have some time. People, it doesn't work otherwise. Leave that newcomer alone. They need to recover just like you do. Give them a chance. Like my sponsor said, he came to Texas, and I was involved in conventions in Texas, and he came and did a fundraiser, and he spoke. Now, I had a sponsor at the time, but I didn't use him. And I heard this man speak, and he told my story. And I said, there's somebody else that's done some of the same things I've done. I think I need to talk to this person because I can relate. And people, when you get a sponsor, get somebody that you can relate to. And I asked him, I said, excuse me, my name is Phil, and I need to ask you a question. And without any hesitation, he said, yes, I will. Get a pad and a pencil. I said, okay. But see, he forgot to do one thing. He forgot to tell me to write on the pad. I still got the same pad and a pencil. And he'll tell you, this guy doesn't write. I do, though, but see, I don't tell him. Because we talk all the time and we spend a lot of time together, and I share everything with him. Because when I asked him to introduce me today, I said, could you do me a favor? And he said, what? I said, could you tell the first 30 minutes of my story? He said, I can tell the whole hour. And you know that's true. Because there's nothing that he doesn't know about me. And somebody asked me, are you going to talk about the farm animals? I said, he doesn't know that. So I won't talk about them. See, y'all people are laughing. You know what I'm saying. You know the old story that his chicken died too. And at 4.5 years clean, what I thought was recovery, I wanted to use. Because I had done something, I had set myself up for a fall. My roommate, who was in recovery, stole from me. He took money, he took jewelry, he took NA money, he took NA jewelry. And I wanted to go use because I said, I've been trying to do everything right, and look what's happened. I'm pissed off at God. Why did God let this happen to me? I called my sponsor and he said, get your ass to a meeting. And I went to a meeting that night, and a person said, Phil, God didn't wake up this morning and say, I'm going to piss off Phil. I'm going to have Phil robbed. Don't blame God. You put yourself in that position, and you have to take yourself out of that position. I didn't use that night. And I also knew that I had a loving God in my life. He didn't have me robbed. I had me robbed. Not today. I don't set myself up to get hurt knowingly. At 6 years clean, I wanted to use again. But you people wouldn't let me. My mother died. See, you have to understand, my life is in Florida with you, and I live in Atlanta. Because my dad and now my stepmother live in Lauderhill. So I was down here a lot, so everybody thought I lived here in Florida. My sponsor's from Florida. I know a ton of people in Florida. I've been to a lot of meetings in Florida. People thought I lived here. But my mother died, and I called my sponsor, and I called a couple of you other people here in Florida and said, I've got to come back to Florida. I had just left here. I was here on Monday, I left on Tuesday, my mother died on Wednesday, and before I could come back on Thursday, you people were at my house waiting for me to get there to hold me and to let me cry. And to let me go through what I had to go through without using. And you stayed with me, and you took me to meetings when I was numb. Because, see, I had a very close relationship with my mother, and I do with my father today. Because on Monday, before I left, my mother, who was dying of cancer and could hardly talk, told me how proud she was of me. That I had turned my life around, that I was in recovery, and that's all she could ask for. I got my family back because of you people. I was able to make my amends, and my parents were proud of me. And that was the love I always looked for. But if it wasn't for you people being there to hold me and let me cry and save my ass another time, I'd have used then because, see, I was pissed off again. Why did you take my mother? She was a good person. She was too young. She's proud of me. But she was in pain. And God had a better place for her to go. And I know she's watching, or she's playing bridge, I'm not sure. Because, see, you have to understand, when my father and I go out to the cemetery to see her, my dad yells at her. He says, Gene, why didn't you teach me how to write a check? Why didn't you teach me how to pay a bill? See, you have to understand, my mother was the boss. My mother told dirty jokes, not my father. I think my mom was an addict, but she doesn't know that. Please don't hear that. And I came down here to Orlando to my first convention, and I was hurting a little bit. Because, see, I was in this relationship, and it was going right in the toilet. So, of course, I called my sponsor, my grand sponsor, who happened to be at the, I think it was the Stouffer Seafront, or SeaWorld, where the convention was here. And I said, look, I've got this problem with my foot, and by the way, I'm also having this problem with my fiance. And they said, well, which one do you want to talk about first? And I said, well, let's talk about, what should I do? I'm dying inside. And they put me in touch with a lady who told me exactly what I was supposed to do. And that's what I did. I left and let her go so she could recover, and I could too. At 8 years clean, I'm real fortunate, people, and I'm not breaking any anonymity because everybody in this room, or most of you people, know that my sponsor is a doctor. And he dealt with feet. And being a diabetic, I have feet problems, as you can tell. And I had a bad infection in my left foot, and I called him and I said, they're going to cut my foot off at the knee, or my leg off at the knee, and he said, no, they're not. He said, you got the best people in Atlanta. Go to them. Well, they saved it. And all I lost was my big toe. So, I made jokes. I said, well, I'm doing okay. I have 9 toes. I get a 10% discount on pedicures, but I'm okay. And I came to Frickner and I limped a little bit. And I came to Frickner the next year and I limped a little bit, but I was okay. Examinations. So I said, okay. Let me back up a little bit. I knew there was something I wanted to say. At a Frickner, and I think maybe we were in West Palm. Does that sound right? At a convention here? I went blind in my left eye because of the diabetes. And I wanted to use then. Because I said, well, I'm blind. I'm a little blurry today, but I can certainly see the love in this room. But you held me and you let me cry, and everything was okay. And that's all we need to talk about that, because I'm still blind in my left eye, but I can see you out of my right eye. And like I said, at 9 years clean, I went into the hospital on Monday. And Monday night, they did an examination on my right leg. And at 1 o'clock in the morning, my doctor came to me in tears. And he said, Phil, we got a problem. And I said, what? He said, you've got no blood flow. Your leg is mush. You've got gangrene. We're going to have to take your leg off. That's scary. But being the addict that I am, I said, well, Doc, can we wait till morning to do this? And he looked at me and he said, I'd love to, but you don't have a morning. If we don't do it now, you're gone. Because the infection is eating your body up. So I said, okay, then do what you have to do. And they came in, and at about 2:30 in the morning, I was laying on the gurney, and I looked down, and there was only one foot sticking up. And I was devastated, people. And I don't know how I did it, and I still don't know how it happened today, but I got a phone laying in recovery. And my first call went to my sponsor. And I said, Biff, they cut my leg off. And his answer to me was, I know. I said, what do you mean you know? He said, I know your doctor. And I've been calling you every 20 minutes to see if you're still alive. Because they told me you may not make it through the night. And I'm on my way to Atlanta. I'll be there in the morning. So I said, okay, fine. And I hung up the phone. What else am I going to say? I don't even know how I got the phone. And I know it's long distance from Atlanta. And I don't think I called collect. And I made a second phone call to a sponsee who's been with me for a long time and had been with me through thick and thin. And I said, James, they cut my leg off. And his only response to me was, I'm on my way to the hospital. And then I called my sister so she could call my dad. And I went back to sleep, and they put me in intensive care, and hooked up all the wires and all the monitors and all the drug paraphernalia. Boy, that was fun. And I hear all this beeping and all this heart stuff. And I woke up about 8:30 in the morning to the loudest commotion I think I've ever heard in my life. Right outside my room door, I'm hearing screaming. I'm saying, my God, what's going on? And I hear my sponsor's voice, and I hear him say to the nurse, don't tell me I can't go in there. I'm on the surgery team. I thought they were going to throw me out of the hospital. They had this nurse turned every which way but loose. And in walks my sponsor, and here comes my sponsee, and he has a pair of blue jeans on, and he owns a company that does electrical and plumbing, and he's got that shirt on, and he's telling this nurse he's on the surgery team. He just got off his Harley. I don't know what team he was on. But they came in that room, and they told me they loved me, and that they were there, and they weren't leaving. And they would be with me as long as I needed them. Well, of course, they got thrown out of intensive care, but you know, in intensive care, or ICU, you're only allowed to be in there 5 minutes every 3 hours. 1 hour later, the nurse says, look, I tell you, you got to leave. Surgery team or no surgery team. So they left, and they said they'd be back. My sponsor had to leave town, and he said he'd be back in a few days. And the phone started ringing. And people started coming to the hospital. And I started getting flowers and gifts. And on the phone calls, people would call me and they say, Phil, how are you feeling? And I said, shit, I got this morphine pump. I'm feeling great. Yep. I got no problems at all. They had me on so much drugs, I had no pain. But my urinal started dancing. And the balloons that were in my room were attacking my bed. Because, see, I've been clean 9 years. So, boy, drugs in my body just didn't work. And, of course, I yelled at my sponsor. I said, give me my pillow and my blanket back and quit taking them. I was in Atlanta. He was in Tallahassee. I knew the drugs had to go. And they unhooked that morphine pump because I didn't need it, people, because I had your love. And I had God in my life. And I didn't have any pain. Because when you called me or you came to the room, I wanted to know what I was saying. I didn't want to tell you that you took my blanket and my pillow when you weren't even there. I wanted to hug you, and I wanted to be hugged. I wanted to be loved, and I still wanted to love. But I also wanted to die. This was the first time in my life that I really knew that I wanted to die. Because, see, I'm a salesman. I'm on the road. I need my feet. I need my legs. How in the hell was I going to work? But you people would not let me die. You wouldn't leave my side. Because, see, I know how to die. Us diabetics have a real slick way if we want to. We just give ourselves a little bit extra insulin, we go to sleep, and we're done. But you people would not leave my side. You watched me. And a month after that, I came home from the hospital and I said, I'll die at home because you won't be around. You know, it's easy for you to watch me here in this hospital, but I get to my house, I'm alone, I'm going to die. Boy, you pissed me off again. People came to my house and stayed there for 24 hours a day. You would not leave me alone. Now, I know today why that happened. Because my sponsor knows me well enough that he told the people in Atlanta, don't leave him alone, because he'll kill himself. I know that today. I didn't know it for a couple years, but what happened was one of my sponsees kind of slipped and said, well, when you were on suicide watch. That's kind of a tip-off that they're not going to leave your side. And then you really made me mad. You brought a meeting to my house. You wouldn't let me die. You wanted me to recover. You wanted me to stay clean. You wanted me to get better. And after a month at home, and see, I was real good about laying in the bed and not wanting to go anywhere. My sponsor, he came in and he said, Phil, let's go to a meeting. I said, man, what are you talking about? I can't go to a meeting. How am I going to go there? I'm laying in the bed. He said, get your fat ass up. I don't know if he said those exact words, but it was close. And get dressed, and I'll help you get dressed, and I'll help you in the wheelchair, and I'll help you into the car. We're going to a meeting. So I said, okay, let's do it.